Welcome to episode 217 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Air, Bow, and Goat Mode edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
I am doing great, Phil. Of course, another weekend of racing here, Talladega and elsewhere, and Long Beach and China and the F1. But frustrating weekend in Cup, I think most would say. But yeah, ready to get into it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are fans of Tyler Reddick and his son Beau, or Michael Jordan and 2311, they're definitely happy. Now, anybody else that's driving a Toyota, I don't know if that's the case. And most of the field, because their cars were destroyed because Michael McDowell made a block that was akin to what Tony Stewart did in 2012, or Kyle Busch tried to do to Tony Stewart a few years before, or insert any number of bad blocks that have taken place on superspeedways over the years. We'll go over everything that went on in the Geico 500. On Sunday, we'll also talk about Jesse Love's first Xfinity win, basically going against the midfield drivers, because everybody that's a top team was wrecked. And they started cannibalizing themselves, those midfielders, and screwed up any chance of winning the race. Alfredo being one of them. So we'll talk about the Xfinity race. The Grand Prix of Long Beach, Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, Scott Dixon pulled one of his greatest drives out, and he has plenty. When you have 57 wins, that you have to think that there's plenty of great performances. He becomes a two-time winner at Long Beach on an alternate strategy, holds off Joseph Newgarden, who had won in St. Pete and was looking for two in a row to start the year. And his teammate and defending series champion Alex Palou, and Colton Herta, who ended up being second because he nerfed Joseph Newgarden out of the way. So we'll talk about how that all went down. Issues with starts and restarts at Long Beach, which, I mean, of course, they had a long green flag run to basically end the race, but like IndyCar usually does. Some of the other key items, like Zach Brown being added to like a subcommittee for marketing and promotions, since IndyCar has been an absolute fail at that for God knows how many decades, it seems. We'll get into the points and everything going on, since they'll be racing this coming weekend at Baba. Fish Lips does his usual crap. Not many people stayed up for that one, unless you're a Red Fool fan. I think the story of the weekend, though, is Lewis Hamilton leading half the sprint and then finishing second with a car that's an absolute pile, and then coming from 18th to finish 9th in the race, albeit because he made a error in judgment or thought or whatever the heck it is with the setup. Toto Wolff continuing to show part of why Lewis Hamilton left Mercedes with every soundbite he seems to make. Mercedes has the fifth best car. The fact that they're even getting points is like a minor miracle. We'll get into the race itself. The fact that Lando Norris is a bitch and lays down for his butt buddy Max Verstappen at every corner. Part of the reason why he doesn't need to leave McLaren is he'll just bend over and take it from him anyway. But he's Britain's next great hope with glass jaw. So maybe Britain needs to start rethinking about who they want as their next world champion, because neither of them are really all that compelling. They remind me of Damon Hill or some of these other guys who are like second tier but end up being world champions or whatever somehow or some way. But as long as Fish Lips is around, nobody is winning anything with that cheated up Red Bull piece of crap. Credit to Guan Yu Zhou, the dream that he had as a child to go and race in Formula One at home finally comes to fruition. They didn't have the best car, of course, by any means, but he got to experience that and experience the fans there. So in that sense, that was one positive that came from China, as a stinky fat tub of shit used to say or has said many times before. The roundup is busy this week. We'll be talking about IMSA at Long Beach, WEC at Imola. The supercars were at Taupo in New Zealand. World Superbikes in Assen, one of the great racetracks in the world, especially for motorcycle racing. Rally Croatia for the WRC. Then we'll preview 4-wide at Charlotte for NHRA, MotoGP Moto2 at Jerez, the Monaco E-Prix for Formula E, and Indy Next at Baba before we preview the Indy cars at Barber and give our picks. NASCAR Cup and Xfinity will be here in the Northeast at Dover for their one weekend of the year there. For whatever reason, they decided to move it to April, so it'll be fucking cold. But whatever, that's NASCAR for you. We'll preview and make picks for that. Josh will let us know all things going on iRacing and gaming in his sim segment, and we'll close the deal. So let's start with the Geico 500, and that was, I don't know what's going on here with my, the thing is spazzing out there. So the Geico 500 at Talladega, we before the race even started, Kyle Larson had unapproved or illegal stuff going on with his car, and they made him do a pass-through penalty, so he was a lap down for a good amount of that for the first stage itself. There was only two cautions. The first two cautions were for the stage breaks, and there was literally only 3 cautions otherwise for cause, and that was the wreck that started with Christopher Bell, then a wreck with all the Toyotas, and then the accident that ended the race itself, essentially. But I mean, there was the fuel mileage crap that they did at Daytona came up again, where they were running 4 or 5 seconds slower than what they could, or however many seconds it was. They were running at part throttle around the racetrack, which in the end, I guess, if the ones that want to watch the cars all drive around in a pack, I guess they were happy about it, even though there was no passing really. But are we really doing is this really what we want to see? Drivers driving around a quarter throttle, half throttle? They would say, oh, well, now they're in a pack. They're not just in one big, giant human centipede up on the wall and just driving around forever. But to also be fair, it's Talladega, and superspeedway races take forever to lead to what always happens, which is massive wrecks. You could save everybody 2 hours of our time. They could cut the damn race to 250 miles or 100 miles, or I don't know. They could cut it
just
down
do
to
10 laps.
You could do 10, 20 laps. You could do what Tony said way back when, where you do 10 laps, you go one way, and 10 laps the other way. You'll destroy all the cars the same way. You could make it made for TV to be done in an hour, and we could all go and move on with our lives after that. But for some reason, we insist on having 2 races at Talladega that take for fucking ever. We have 2 races at Atlanta, which are a joke, and then you have Daytona, which will be okay no matter what they do with the cars, because it's Daytona. But super speedway racing, never been my favorite. I made that abundantly clear in my on this program and elsewhere. But even with this weekend's race itself, Josh, I mean, they'll say, well, there's plenty of lead changes. 23 cars led, 72 total lead changes. So they'll be like, well, there's plenty of action. There might be up front, but you have 90% of the field driving at 60% throttle. So I'm like, are we racing or are we fuel saving? I mean, it's ironic since we're about to talk about how great Scott Dixon did with fuel save, but that was with the fact that he was running laps that were keeping him ahead of the guys that in theory were supposed to go and pass him because they had more fuel or whatever. But McDowell qualified on pole. He had the fastest car. He had qualified on the outside pole at Daytona for the 500, qualified on pole at Atlanta. So he had the fastest car. McDowell led 36 laps. So he led the most laps of anybody. Second most laps led were Pizza Face, who won stage 2. Gumby Cindric got probably one of the best points days of his whole entire season. Won a stage, finished second in the second stage, and led 16 laps. So you get, John Hunter Nemechek, before he went and ARCA braked all of his Toyota teammates, and almost jacked up his actual teammate, Eric Jones, yeeting him into the wall, akin to what we have seen in the past with a few people about 24 years ago or 23 years ago. Bad wreck there that basically made the Toyota drivers look like a bunch of monkeys fucking footballs. And then, I mean, that was the main thing. And then Michael McDowell trying to block Brad Keselowski and coming down about 6 lanes and then yeeting himself, which then in turn wrecked most of the field. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's super speedway racing, Josh. But that's what this has become. Nobody flew into the stands, thankfully. There was Corey LaJoie going and soul grinding his driver's side of his Gainbridge Chevy across the finish line, and his teammate being spun out and like hitting him or whatever in Carson Osavar. You have Chase Briscoe getting spun out for I don't know how many times that was, because his day was an absolute joke, and the fact that he got the finish he did was a miracle. And Ryan Preece, his teammate, hitting him past the start finish line after Preece had already been in part of the wreck where Josh Berry had gotten destroyed. So Stewart-Haas Racing running over each other, which is great. I mean, there was a lot of carnage at the end, a lot of unnecessary moves, but in the grand scheme of things, Tyler Reddick gets his first win of the season, and continues the trend of Hendrick Chevys or Toyotas winning basically everything since Atlanta when Nacho Libre won there. It's been that Hendrick or Toyota. Brad Keselowski, second place, was close to finally getting that win as an owner. Noah Gragson was third in one of two overstock Fords. Richard in the Boost Thomas's Philadelphia Cream Cheese Chevrolet. That's plenty. Basically started tailback and finished fourth. Of course, the track where he's won at before. Alex Bowman rounding out the top five. Anthony Alfredo for the Beard Motorsports team ran up front for a good amount of the race and got up there late and was able to get a top 10 finish. I would venture to say that's the best finish that Beard Motorsports has ever had. I know that Brendan Gaughan tried to win one time and ended up on his lid a few years ago for them. Byron, Todd Gilliland, who was my pick in the one fantasy game, the pick'em game I have that I'm involved in, still lead the points, lost a lot of points a couple of weeks because of Byron and I forget Hamlin and one other guy basically. I think it's Truex, or no, not Truex, but lost points. But Gilliland getting a top 10, Daniel Hemrick getting a top 10, and Harrison Burton. Wow. Getting a 10th place finish there. Truex finishes 11th. Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, a former Talladega winner. Preece and William Clyde Elliott II, another former winner at Talladega. Barry Hocevar, LaJoy, Pizza Face, Blaney, the latter two former winners at this racetrack. There were 30 of the race's 38 cars on the lead lap. Zane Smith was multiple laps down, but somehow or another, I guess through waiver rounds and whatever, got himself back on the lead lap. Shane Van Gisbergen definitely showed well, had a lot of speed in his Wendy Chevy, and just didn't get any help. But the fact of the matter is he's proven in his limited starts on super speedways that he is figuring it out. And it's pretty interesting that, SVG has figured out that aspect of racing so quickly. But it really, to be fair, it isn't that surprising considering how talented he is. But yeah, after all that, the Toyotas there all basically tailback. BJ McLeod actually was leading the race a little bit, showing that basically anybody, as long as you make the field, has a chance, in theory. But in the end, the Jordan Brand Toyota goes to victory lane. They're actually going to it looks like they're actually going to make the diecast. So I'm going to order one because the notion of a Jordan Brand car actually being made is so rare, Josh. But Tyler Reddick ends up being the fortunate one, avoiding the wreck amongst his Toyota teammates and then avoiding the big wreck triggered by Michael McDowell to go and get a win on the super speedway. Not something that he's unfamiliar with. He's done that in other series and Trucks Xfinity, but now in the Cup Series doing it and getting himself locked in to the playoffs very early on.
Tyler Reddick, his son Beau, gets a ride from Michael Jordan in pit road at the end of the race and gets carried into victory lane. So what a little memory for his son there very early on in his life to have that. So that's pretty cool to see. And Michael after the race comparing the intensity to NBA playoff game. Of course, NBA playoffs going on currently right now. So yeah, a lot of, I guess, feelings emotion wise does kind of feel like that. But so a lot of eyeballs, of course, Michael Jordan in victory lane for the first time, kind of breaking a little jinx because every time he goes to the racetrack, they hadn't won until now. So, yeah, that's cool to see and everything. But the actual race, I mean, it's a fuel mileage race once again on the super speedway where they're running 54-second laps, so they're about 3 to 4 seconds off the pace running as a pack. So to me that kind of brings into question, is this going against the so-called 100% rule that they implemented a decade ago, to prevent basically gaming the system that some teams were doing. And I don't know who started this, but now most of them are doing it. And of course the Toyotas decided to force everybody to start racing, and that they were going to race their way after getting their final pit stop back to the front. But then John Hunter Nemechek of course causes a wreck, because he's doesn't really have any finesse or anything like that to not cause a wreck. So he caused the big one there, and almost put his teammate, actually did put his teammate in the hospital there, with Eric Jones going to the hospital afterwards and got released. But it seemed in a ton of pain if you listen to the onboard and his radio after the race and everything. So yeah, pretty hard hit for Eric Jones there, going head on into the wall like that. Yeah, very similar to a wreck that happened many years ago, of course, like you said. So yeah, that's very, very bad to see that. But of course, cycled Tyler Reddick up to the front with the remaining Toyotas there, and that's kind of where they stayed, and they were able to maintain their position in line until the last lap. Of course, Michael McDowell gets too far out in front there, and Brad Keselowski, of course, was pushing him. Keselowski lays back to try to get a run, and McDowell wasn't able to maintain that gap, maintain that distance there, so they wouldn't get too far out in front. And Keselowski tries to go for the win, and almost looks like his first career win there, except there was a whole pack of cars behind him that were able to get around him, with Tyler Reddick being able to get around him there, unlike what happened in his first win, where it was just him, Ryan Newman, Dale Jr., and Carl Edwards, and put Carl Edwards and Ryan Newman into the fence there. So very similar looking to Keselowski's first win there, and another missed opportunity for Brad Keselowski to get a win there. So of course, yeah, I mean, the fuel saving nonsense and everything, I mean, yeah, like you mentioned earlier, so Scott Dixon, we'll talk about it later in more detail, but of course, Scott Dixon, that skill there, being able to save fuel, maintain your push to pass, and hold on to the lead for however long he did. Whereas this, where you have the whole field saving fuel, I mean, that's a mockery of it, isn't it? I think they're making a mockery of the whole thing. And at least, I guess the Toyota strategy would have worked, and forcing everyone to start racing at the end. But then, they wrecked themselves there. So, that went to the bin. But, I mean, it's a negative, to me, it's a negative feedback loop, because, you talk about like, oh, well, we need to keep all the engines to the same spec for the whole season and not change, the amount of horsepower. So they'll have the same amount of horsepower per race, but then, to save money. And so to do that, to maintain the, speeds and keep everybody from flying into the fence, we're going to put a tremendous amount of drag and have a giant spoiler on these cars, and then make it so that, you basically have to stay in line throughout the race. And because of all the drag, we need to fuel save until the end. So now we have road course pit strategy, or even like Indy 500 pit strategy there, where you're waiting until the final fuel window to go for it there. And then you have that, and then you try to pull out and pass at the end. It's impossible unless you're in two lanes. You need to have so much energy behind you. It doesn't work unless you have like 10 cars behind you, which it's what we saw at the end with Kyle Busch, SVG, and Chase Elliott. They had a line going that was starting to make headway to the front, and then well, Kyle Busch got in front of it, and I think they were okay, but then Ty Gibbs got in front, and then they, whatever reason, they couldn't stay connected together anymore. So that causes the issue there, and then that third lane disappears. The second lane kind of maintains, and so now you just see these lanes shifting, which causes lead changes. It's not really like where you're truly getting around a guy to get up front and lead. You know, your lane just has more momentum at the time where you pass the start finish line, and just so happens to be whoever's at front causes the lead change. So, you know, that's definitely a lot of inflation there in terms of the actual lead changes that took place in the race. So, even though they still count, so that's definitely highly inflated for sure. So, yeah, I mean, you have all of that factor in. In fact, you know, Kyle Busch said it right. You know, if you pull out and pass, it's, you know, impossible because of the amount of drag. So you have to basically just stay in line and, you know, hope for everybody else to, you know, lane shift and start, you know, moving around, and then just maintain, hold in line, and you either net a top 5 out of it, or, you know, get possibly a win, which is what Tyler Reddick did. So yeah, I don't know the answer to fixing super speedway racing, of course. I mean, well, actually I do. I mean, you just you know, take off the drag and less drag. And I mean, I guess they're still using a tapered spacer, but if they're all running the same amount of horsepower, then I guess that changes it. But which is interesting. So figure out a way to give them more throttle response. So you know, like what we saw in 2010, 2011, when they had incredible throttle response in the, you know, plate racing, with, you know, especially at Daytona, was actually amazing. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do. I think first step is remove some of this drag, so, you know, you have some variance in strategy and what it, you know, people are able to do. Because I mean, yeah, you can fuel save and everything, but then, you know, you'd think that there might be other teams that might be willing to try to, you know, go 100%, go full rich as long as possible to try to overlap the competition. You would think that maybe they'd be willing to do it, but then I guess maybe it's a moot point, because when they get to the stage, when they pit, then the other guys that fell a lap down would just wave around back. So, I mean, that's one way, in my opinion, to think of it like. But yeah, so that's kind of how, what I think about that race. You know, especially, you know, at the end, you know, where it's just, you know, two lines lane shifting, and then you're just kind of waiting to see the inevitable, which, you know, Michael McDowell blocking and then causing the wreck there. So yeah, I mean, would like to get back to seeing, you know, where racing on super speedways was more individualized, and, you know, you could actually pull out and pass by yourself, or, you know, figure out a way to get around a guy other than just, you know, slamming into the back bumper to get up front. So you know, it's kind of interesting. You know, we've mentioned it before, but it's kind of interesting how the old car, Gen 6, was pretty good on short track and road course, and you know, decent on super speedways, but then it was terrible on intermediates, and now it's the opposite. So yeah, I mean, another Gen 6 or, you know, Gen 7 flop, you know, that we're probably gonna have to wait until the charter agreement is over, until we can figure out how to, you know, make changes, because it's all tied to the money and all that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But, you know, definitely on super speedways and, you know, other types of tracks besides intermediates, you know, they definitely got a lot of work to do to make it more palatable and a lot more I guess true to racing, rather than just the spectacle that was on Sunday.
Yeah, and you know, you talked about those charters, and SOD came out and said they're close, but basically anybody who's involved on the RTA side said no. So who are you going to believe? The big oaf that's got his head shoved so far up Steve Phelps' ass he could tell him what he ate? Or are you going to go and believe the owners? And I'd venture to say the owners on that. I definitely, the point you made about the inflated leader numbers. I mean, at the Atlanta slot car track, there's a little bit more to that one, because you kind of have to race there. Daytona and Talladega. I mean, I was thinking about it like, oh, needing help versus just kind of sitting there. Even in the early 90s when I started watching, yes, there were certain cars that were really fast and they were able to make some moves, but even they needed a little bit of help, like probably a car or two, not 10 or 20. But then also, once people started deciding to make moves, there would be a spread across the track, which then in turn broke the air up, which led more people to come in, make moves. You brought up 2010, 2011. That was around the time of when, with the Gen 5 car, that the tandems came along, which for me was the best product. Now, of course, Dale Jr. hated it, so they got rid of it. And I mean, granted, I think in his case, it probably came from the fact that he had to push Jimmy Johnson across the line the one time, and that probably pissed him off. He wasn't winning a whole lot. No offense, Josh, but he wasn't winning a whole lot for a while there, and then having to basically sit there and push his teammate to victory at one of his houses theoretically was probably not the greatest for him. But the tandem drafting, you didn't have the amount of wrecks. Yes, there were a lot of lead changes. Yes, there was a difference in speed, especially when they would go and have to swap because of temperatures. They've taken that away, which is like another thing that they've taken away. They basically have taken all these different options and tools out of the toolbox, and they're essentially telling the teams, here's a wrench and here's a screwdriver, a rusty wrench and a screwdriver in here. And you have to go and work on this GT3 car. That's basically what they're working with. I mean, the drag piece, that's stupid. I'm getting sick and tired of the aero being an issue. It's like you put a damn diffuser under there in theory so that they wanted underbody downforce, so then there wouldn't be as big of a thing with the aero wash or whatever. But I mean, you know better than me, but they had time to draw this car up, and they figured out a way to make a car that's so bad on the majority of racetracks. I mean, that's talent. I gotta give NASCAR credit on that. You figured out a way to have a clean sheet of paper and make a car that's so bad that it can't race at most of the racetracks you race at. That's talent. That's hardcore right there. And then they want to insult the fans. So I mean, it's unbelievable, the stupidity of NASCAR. But I mean, we're watching, so I guess maybe we're the dumb ones because we're the ones that give them the time of day and whatever, even though they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And that there's going to be an all-star race in a few weeks that's going to be a complete snooze fest, or there's going to be a lot of races here coming up that are going to be god awful. I don't know, but so be it. The points getting out of Talladega here, Larson continues to lead the points even with the situation. They haven't imposed a penalty yet. Who knows if they will? It is a Hendrick car, so they probably won't. Leads by 15 over Truex. The 3 Hendrick cars in the top 4, all 4 Hendrick cars in the top 10 in points. So the top 10 are separated by less than 100. And then you also have the Gibbs cars or the Toyotas in general. 4 Toyotas in the top 8. And then you add Bubba, 5 in the top 11, 6 in the top 13 with Christopher Bell. So those are all the full time, like the regular Toyotas. The Eric Jones is 20th with Legacy, and John Hunter's 22nd. So to be a new to the Toyota team in the Cup Series and be able to be essentially 10 positions better than where they were last year or thereabouts, shows that the cars are that Toyota has brought a good car to the table. It doesn't draft very well, obviously, or doesn't match very well with the other cars in terms of bump drafting and stuff like that. But it definitely is a good car on short tracks, and good car at 1.5 mile tracks. So there's only, I think, 4 Fords in the playoff at the moment. 3, yeah. There's only 4, led by the defending series champion Ryan Blaney. So Larson, Truex, Elliott, Byron, Reddick. Truex, the best driver, so far doesn't have a win. Richmond was its own thing. Hamlin, who did get that Richmond win. Blaney, Keebler, Gibbs, Ross Chastain, and Alex Bowman rounding out the top 10. Darrell Wallace Jr., Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, and Joey Logano round out the field there, because Daniel Suarez is outside of the top 16, but he has a win. So Logano is the cutoff, and I think the difference is the playoff point. Essentially, the stage win is the reason why he would be in over Chris Buescher. There's a bit of a separation then after that, after Buescher, to Kyle Busch at 12 points and 24 points to Suarez, but Suarez is okay. You got some other cars that you have basically a big group there, going from Austin Cindric all the way down to Preece and even to Josh Berry. Cindric to Berry is 41 points. So that's a group in itself that has a chance to make some hay if they can get a few good races together. I'm trying to look at of all the drivers that have made every race, Zane Smith's still in last, 15 points behind Justin Haley, Harrison Burton, Dylan LaJoy, Hemrick, making up that bottom of the barrel there. All right, let's go to the Xfinity race here. Spent a lot of time there on the Cup side. The Xfinity Ag Pro 300 at Talladega. Gumby Inbred Hill qualified on pole. Won stage 2. Led the most laps. Jesse Love, his teammate, started second. Won stage 1. And was second in stage 2. Nearly had the max out performance in the end, but just missed out because of finishing behind Austin Hill there. It was those 2 cars and Parker Kligerman, all 3 RCR, either team cars or affiliated with Big Machine Records team. And they ran together for a good amount of the race. There was, that's a stage. They don't even show the stage 1 I guess stage one was that they called it at the end of during the caution for Justin Allgaier there. But yeah, I mean, in the end, 34 lead changes among 16 drivers. Justin Allgaier did not have a chance. He had the issues early. Jeffrey Earnhardt, someone who has finished second in this race in the past, ended up blowing up early, driving for Sam Hunt, which is unfortunate considering how good Sam Hunt's team has been doing. With Corey Heim behind the wheel, that when Jeffrey Earnhardt makes one of his limited starts, they only go about, 46 laps. The finishing order on Saturday, it went to 124 laps, so it went 11 laps past the scheduled distance. Jesse Love has enough fuel. That was a concern because everybody started running out of fuel. Josh, you mentioned that, and we'll get in that in more detail here. Jesse Love gets his first career win over Riley Herbst. Then Anthony Alfredo, so 2 top 10 finishes for Anthony Alfredo this past weekend. Leland Honeyman getting the Young's Motorsports team a top for their first top 5 in the Xfinity Series. Of course, Talladega is one of their best racetracks. I don't know how many, was it 2 wins? They had one with Spencer Boyd somehow. And then also with Tate Fogelman, the reason why we have the algorithm, because Josh somehow, some way with the algorithm picked Tate Fogelman, and even though Tate Fogelman almost ended up on his lid, he won that truck race. So the Young's Motorsports team gets a top 5. Alpha Prime gets 2 cars in the top 10, and to be fair, Brennan Poole probably could have won the race if Anthony Alfredo hadn't hung him out coming through the tri-oval there. Sheldon Creed finishes 6th, Cesar Baccarella 7th, D. Burrito 8th, Jeb Burton 9th, and Cole Custer in 10th. Try to go through here. 22 cars finished on the lead lap. The last one being Shane Van Gisbergen, who, like I mentioned in the Cup race, he had a pretty decent piece on Saturday, and he continues to learn this format or learn this type of racing, and he's taken to it very well, which I think is concerning. I would be concerned because Colleague knows how to make good cars. They're not at the same level as RCR or maybe SHR or maybe Gibbs or whatever, but right now, but they've been D cars in the past. So that's something where that opens up options for SVG to get himself into the playoffs if he can get track position, get some help later in the season. But somebody who isn't going to have to worry about making the playoffs because he's won his first race is Jesse Love. He won 10 races in ARCA last year, won the championship in dominant fashion, got into heated battles with William Sawalich, but these days he's not having to race William Sawalich, so Jesse Love has been very head down focused, having Danny Stockman as his crew chief, veteran crew chief, many years, championship winner, with Bald Spot Dylan and trucks and Xfinity. No, he hasn't won a Cup race. It was all the wins that Dylan has is with Justin Alexander. But Danny Stockman has been able to work with a lot of young talent and cultivate that talent. Jesse Love, I think, needed somebody to calm him down and rein him back a bit. By doing that, they're maximizing that equipment, and in turn, he seems to be showing why he's a top prospect here in NASCAR with consistency as a young driver. So, in the end, you put yourself in those positions. Can you go and finish the job? Jesse Love is one that seemingly Josh doesn't have a problem doing that. And behind him was just a absolute grab bag of drivers, because a lot of the key players were knocked out.
A lot of players were knocked out in this one, including his teammate Austin Hill there, but Jesse Love, of course, kind of getting redemption from what happened to him at Atlanta. Remember, he led a ton of laps there at that track and came down to a series of late race cautions and fuel, trying to stretch the fuel, and he ended up running out of gas before the race went back to green ultimately, so ended up losing that one despite all the effort that he put into it. But this one leads at the end, holds on to it, and manages to stretch the gas all the way 50 laps on a tank of gas over that. So yeah, he obviously has figured out something here in terms of fuel strategy and saving in these cars. His team obviously has figured out something as well, so credit to them for figuring that out. But of course, could have been challenged a little bit more on that last restart final lap there. But I think the drivers' cars around him were a little too green for the moment. Definitely, some of them are probably just happy to come away with a top 10 at Talladega, of course, and that's why kind of you see some of them start to fight for the positions individually instead of staying in line. See, this is the kind of the difference between Cup and Xfinity. You still need help, and of course, but you got to do everything you can to keep the momentum up and stay in line. And you saw in the final lap, Haley Diggin and Riley Herbst were lined up, but Herbst hung her out to dry for whatever reason, doesn't trust her, which can't blame him. But at the same time, you got to figure out a way to get up to the front, and that kind of broke up that line there. So that kind of took away the opportunity for them to make something happen in that lane. Later on in the lap, you saw Brandon Poole get up there, who hasn't had a sniff at a win since almost going back to 2016 at Talladega. So about 8 years ago now, when he was driving, I think the 42 car for back then for Chip Ganassi when they had an Xfinity team. So he had the opportunity to get there, but he got hung out to dry a little bit on the front stretch by Anthony Alfredo, so that kind of defaulted to Jesse Love getting the win there. So it was kind of interesting to see at the end there, especially with all those guys. Watching that ending of that race, I was like, well, damn, we have it wasn't the algorithm pick that I made, but or that we made here, but it's definitely the algorithm type of pick that could have won that race, with all those back markers and stuff being up there in the top 10. So that's definitely the type of finish that we can see here at Talladega, especially the final lap, or coming to the final lap. We saw Austin Hill get turned by Parker Kligerman there, so that took out a bunch of contenders. And of course, in the middle of the race, we saw Parker and others get into it as well, took out Sam Mayer and took out Brandon Jones. Yeah, Brandon Jones got right rear hooked on lap 67 with a lane change there and caused a big wreck. But that that was the only two big incidents there until the very end. So it was definitely interesting to watch that. But I have to say, that was also just because of the lack of experience there. That was kind of frustrating to see nobody really mount a charge at the end to try to get around or not Austin Hill, but get around Jesse Love there. So or at least be unable to sustain it there. So That's kind of what you get sometimes at Talladega, but it is what it is. But it was definitely, I felt like this race was definitely a little bit more interesting than the Cup race for sure.
Yeah, the Cup race left a lot to be desired. The Xfinity race had more action because even with the drag package that they have on the car, you're still able to kind of dictate and make something happen there. And that's fundamentally the difference, and putting it in the driver's hands instead of it being in the hands of someone else. So that's I mean, the point you made about Hailie Deegan, I mean, she's just clueless. She's basically like Miss Hummer. And I think that's part of the reason why Riley Herbst has basically dumped her out, even though she was basically her a few years ago. But I mean, there was no other Fords up there. I mean, Custer was in the end finished 10th, but you need to be thinking logically. I mean, DiBurrito wasn't up there until the end. You have to give yourself a chance to win the race, lock yourself into the playoffs, use whatever you have to do, hang her out to dry to go and win the race, not hang her out to dry and then lose any chance to win. But that's that whole common sense piece, really. Ryan Sieg, in the end, basically a survival test, wins the Dash for Cash as a consolation for losing to Sam Mayer at Texas. He does get $100,000 because his car was one of two cars that were still somewhat functional at the end of the race. I think AJ Allmendinger was the other car. Sieg had late, I think the next to last yellow or the last yellow, got back on the lead lap and was able to go to pit road, get fuel and tires, and then came back out and was able to make the passes necessary to go and get that $100,000 bonus. The points after Talladega, Chandler Smith still leads the points by 14 over Cole Custer, 16 over Austin Hill. Jesse Love swaps places with Justin Allgaier. With the win, moves to within 41 points of the lead. Allgaier falls to 5th, minus 79, off Chandler Smith. Riley Herbst 6th. AJ Allmendinger 7th. Sammy Smith, Parker Kligerman, and Sheldon Creed rounding out the top 10. Right now, in terms of a regular, you have Sam Mayer, who's outside of the top 12. So Ryan Sieg is your cutoff based on that. Got a 5-point lead on Anthony Alfredo, 19 on Buckshot Jones, and then 20 or 30 on SVG. So that's something we'll look at at Dover more and more detail next week, and how that all works out with the points as they get to race 10 after 10 races into the season. Will the Toyotas reappear with Chandler Smith, or will we see the continued RCR and JRM push from Chevy, or will the defending series champion Cole Custer set himself up early in the season for a title defense? Another series where you're talking about going and putting in a points championship or competing for a points championship. The IndyCar Series is a full season championship, unlike other series. And Scott Dixon used one of the best strategies ever, probably in the history of his illustrious Hall of Fame career, to go out and win the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach by just under a second over Colton Herta. Started 8th and took the victory and moves himself to 2nd in points. Colton Herta and Alex Palou rounding out the podium, and all Honda podium, 4 Hondas in the top 5, 5 in the top 7, and 6 of the top 8. And so that, or 6 of the top 9, including pole sitter Felix Rosenqvist, who from the word go was getting swamped by everybody. So I'm not sure what the ultimate issue was there. But, I mean, the fuel save that Dixon had to do, like Josh mentioned earlier, with being able to not only save fuel, but maintain pace and set up good lap times, and then in the end being able to utilize push to pass, get back, and then get all the way back around, doing some, spinning his wheels, doing little burnouts, rolled in under his own power. I mean, I get what Mike Hall and what Dixon said, that it was very close, and I mean, Ganassi couldn't believe it. It was a great weekend for Chip Ganassi in general. But I mean, Scott Dixon, it's unbelievable. I didn't think that when he was in the lead and when they were talking about what he was going to have to do, that he was going to be able to hold off Newgarden. And Newgarden was there. He was biding his time to possibly go and make that pass for the victory and get redemption from last year. But instead, Newgarden left wanting and to wonder what might have been if he was able to get through and he didn't get moved over by Colton Herta. But Chevrolet dominated. They brought it up on the telecast. Chevrolet dominated at St. Petersburg, and now Honda was dominant at Long Beach, Josh. And so, I mean, plenty of parity in that sense. Qualifying is uber difficult. And, to even make the Fast 12 before you even think about the Fast 6. So, meaningful in terms of track position, meaningful in a lot of ways. But the guy that's standing on top is somebody who's done it basically more than anybody else in the history of IndyCar racing, and that name is Scott Dixon.
Yeah, Scott Dixon, once again, a masterclass by Scott Dixon in terms of fuel saving, in terms of maintaining the lead and defending the lead at the end of the race, and being able to maneuver through slower traffic there at the end. And a 20-year winning streak, or 20-year where he had consecutive wins. It's incredible. It's pretty hard to do, and that's why probably Scott Dixon is definitely one of the greatest of all time, and probably, I mean, any open wheel racing, especially with American open wheel racing, and Scott Dixon 10 wins away from AJ Foyt's mark of 67 wins, which is definitely attainable, but it's going to be interesting to see how much longer he can continue to do this for, because he would, if he wants to do it in a reasonable amount of time, he would have to go on a clip here and win 4 or 5 races here within the next, each of the next couple of seasons to be able to get to that mark, and then win a little bit more to pad onto that to be the greatest and everything. But for Scott Dixon, once again, he's been able to just figure out how to manage the fuel. And see, we talked about earlier with the fuel saving at Talladega. See, this is true fuel saving, where you've maintained the lead and you've gained an advantage in the lead, and you're able to maintain that gap between yourself in second and be able to defend and slowly drain your push to pass when possible to stay up in front. And you had the traffic, and I think he kind of benefited as well from Newgarden, kind of getting run into in the last turn in turn 11. But just a wonderful drive there from Scott Dixon. And you see the strategy here in this series where it does depend on fuel, but there's variance in it, and everybody's on something different. And that's kind of what you were seeing at the end with Scott taking the risk and going on the big gamble there. But the rest of the field, Newgarden, Herta, and Marcus Ericsson going on that strategy, and that allows them to be able to challenge Scott Dixon there at the end. And maybe we could have seen Colton Herta or Joseph Newgarden try to challenge maybe Newgarden, because I think he was close, and definitely had the better handling there, I think, overall in pace than Scott Dixon. But Scott Dixon survives at the end and gets this victory. And what a mark for him, of course. Newgarden comes close, could have opened the season with two wins in a row, but kind of gets run into the back two by Colton Herta. Interesting there, no penalty, but I don't think it was intentional by Colton Herta. I think it's kind of an accordion effect, because they were kind of in traffic at that point with the lapped cars, Kiffin Simpson, Stingray Robb, Santino Ferrucci, Lingard, all those guys kind of hanging around in the back with them trying to maintain their race, and then Scott Dixon, Newgarden catch up to them. They're kind of running slower there in the moment in turn 11, and then Herta runs into the back of Newgarden there and kind of ends Newgarden's chances there of getting a win. Alex Blow as well. So just a really interesting race there with the fuel strategy of Dixon, but I think the racing as well pretty good with Newgarden fighting up front early on, Ericsson fighting up front trying to challenge Newgarden as well. So a lot of interesting racing here going on this weekend. McLaren, of course, early on they had their issues with Rossi and with Pato O'Ward. Pato O'Ward kind of ruined his race there at the beginning and takes the penalty. But so they kind of had their chance kind of taken away by that. But good pace there by Dixon, and Will Power, of course, had his moments as well, especially with how he struggled in practice. So for all of that, so just a lot more interesting, I think, with open wheel racing, and we'll talk about IMSA a little bit later as well, I assume. But so a lot of interesting racing, I think, going on here at Long Beach for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely more interesting because of, like you mentioned, the strategy. You're having to keep up to see the times, the pace that the one strategy is setting versus the other. They're doing camera, they're moving to different cars, seeing the amount of fuel save that the likes of Will Power had to do to go and make it. He was on the same strategy as Dixon, but he lost track position somewhere, and then never was really able to make it back up. While Newgarden was probably one of, if not the fastest car. Dixon, Herta, Palou, your podium. Newgarden, Ericsson round out the top five. None of them started worse than eighth. Power finished sixth after taking the lead early in the race. Finished 15 seconds, or nearly 16 seconds behind. Defending race winner Kyle Kirkwood finished seventh. Romain Grosjean finished eighth. Felix Rosenqvist, after starting on pole, finished ninth. Alexander Rossi recovered to finish 10th, just ahead of temporary teammate Teo Porcher, the Formula 2 champion, making his IndyCar debut for McLaren in relief of David Malukas. came from 22nd to finish 11th. Marcus Armstrong, Linus Lundqvist, the teammates there. There was 18 cars on the lead lap. And there was one car that was out of the race in the end. That was Christian Rasmussen, who crashed 14 laps into the race. Took Jack Harvey with him. Harvey ended up having to repair some damage, and that was the only caution of the race. So they ran from lap 18 all the way to the checkered flag on lap 85 under green, which is 60, 67 laps. They ran the last 67 laps under green. So, I mean, that's typical of IndyCar, but considering how tight Long Beach is, to only have one yellow is pretty crazy. The points heading into Barber, Joseph Newgarden leads the points by 12 over Scott Dixon, 15 over Herta, 24 over Pelot, and 26 ahead of Will Power. Award, Rosenquist, Kirkwood, Rossi, and McLaughlin, even though McLaughlin had issues yesterday, round out the top 10. Okay. Yeah, Formula One. You know what? The one thing we'll talk about before we move to Formula One, because we're not going to spend that much time on it. The starts and restarts, they made a adjustment where I think they had Oriol Servia, the pace car driver, stay out longer so that they would have to stay in a pack. Felix Rosenquist, or whatever, I guess Will Power, with his experience, was able to game the system, get in a line early, and then pass him going into turn one, lap one. I don't know if that's the ideal strategy, considering the way the track is set up, but, you know, in the end, Will Power was leading early and tried to use that alternate strategy to win. Instead, Dixon was the one to do it. Would Long Beach benefit from something like what Talladega has, where they move their start-finish line further down into one of the chutes, essentially, to, you know, if the start-finish line, they said it yesterday, if the start-finish line was at the tri-oval, there'd be a lot different results at Talladega. Would moving the start-finish line further down Shoreline Drive possibly allow for one to have better restarts in terms of having everyone on the track on the same straightaway, and or would it be wrong to do that, move the start finish line down, keep it the way it is, and just kind of see how things work themselves out, which, you know, I think is probably not exactly the greatest idea, but what do you think, Josh, in regards to that?
I think it's an interesting idea, of course. I think if you move it further down on Shoreline Drive and make sure that everybody gets out of turn 11 before they throw the green, could lead to more interesting, or at least, yeah, certainly more interesting restarts where it's closer, but then you also run the risk of something happening in turn 1 as they break for that corner. You know, on the other end, you know, with coming out of turn 11, things get kind of stacked up there coming to the green. We've seen it before where somebody gets punted or somebody gets run into the back of in that corner coming out of that. So it's all about finding a happy medium, I guess, there, deciding when to throw the green or when does the leader go on that restart or on the start of the race. with the moving it further down certainly makes it closer, but maybe there's a safety issue. On the other end, keeping it the way it is definitely, it definitely would make it interesting as well for overtaking in the finish, because it does take a lot. I mean, in turn 11 to be able to get alongside to, get around a person before a car before the start finish line. So that's another thing to think about that as well. And if you move it further down, you definitely have time to build a run off of turn 11 out, going on to shoreline drive. So that's definitely something to think about. But I mean, in the end, maybe keep it the same way as it is, and maybe possibly move the starting point somewhere else where we still count the lap where the green flag or where the start finish line is, but maybe we go before that section of corners leading into turn 11 or something like that for starts and restarts. Maybe something like that could work. But it's kind of interesting to kind of watch that happen in the finish. We leave the finish line where it is for the finish. So I mean, there's lots of possibilities that we could go with that, but it's kind of interesting to hear that thought.
My bet on that. Yeah, we'll see what IndyCar does. I'm probably because of logistics and the way that the track is configured, any type of move of a start finish line, it may be kind of like a mid-Ohio situation when they do the initial start. They do it on the back straightaway, and then every subsequent restart happens on the front straightaway, even though most of the cars are still in the carousel or behind that. So we'll see how that all goes. Formula One was in China for the first time since 2019. In 2019, Max Verstappen I think he only had 5 wins at that point when they last ran at China, and no championships and a couple other things. But these days, he wins every race. Going away, not completely clear during the sprint, but it became abundantly clear on Sunday in the actual race that he was going to win, and it was going to be pretty easy. We both thought Ferrari was going to stand out this weekend, and I had read that maybe McLaren was going to struggle. Instead, the McLarens, or at least Lando Norris, didn't and was able to finish second. And then Sergio Perez finished third. The men's game over second place in China. So the results of the Chinese Grand Prix, Fish Lips over Norris by 13.77 seconds. Sergio Perez finished 5.38 seconds behind Norris in third, and was 4.4 seconds out of Leclerc in fifth. Carlos Sainz sixth. Carlos Sainz fifth. George Russell sixth. Fernando Alonso seventh. Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hulkenberg rounding out points paying positions. Hamilton came from 18th to finish 9th. Good job by him and the team, even with all the nonsense that's going on there. Valtteri Bottas fell out of the race. So did Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. Those are a couple people that are in the news these days with their futures on the line. But one person that doesn't have to worry about his future is Fish Lips, even with whatever nonsense is going on outside of the racetrack. But in Max's world, whether that's gaming or driving, he's doing what he's supposed to do given the advantage that he has. Josh.
Yeah, given the advantage that Max Verstappen has, I mean, it's Max's world and we're all just living in it. So, yeah, he's just going to continue to win forevermore, henceforth and forevermore. So, 4 wins already on the season, 5th race, and no reason why he's not going to win here in 2 weeks in Miami, Imola, Monaco, maybe Montreal. Maybe the win streak will stop there. We'll see. But, he goes out and wins this one. Easy pickings for him here. I mean, didn't lead every lap, of course, but a little bit different strategy by McLaren. But yeah, he won or dominated for most of this. I think the only interesting thing that really happened here, Fernando Alonso made it interesting at the start by stealing second away from Checo Perez and was able to hold on to it for the first about 4 laps before the tires started to go away on him. And then he kind of fell back into 5th there. So that was a little interesting. Of course, Lewis Hamilton made it into the points from 18th, but still, kind of a bit, terms of points, I mean, it doesn't really help him in terms of being able to, go to the championship or catch Max Verstappen or anything like that or move forward. So there's still questions there. I think Ricciardo kind of getting ran into the back of by Lance Stroll, but then he gets penalized. I don't get that. So, as I'm pretty sure that was clearly Lance Stroll's fault, as they were bunching up for, I guess, the safety car there. So I don't know why they did that, but of course, Dan Ricciardo already on short notice with Red Bull and RB and Leeds ends up having an issue there. So very very short leash there for him. But yeah, in the end, Max wins the race. So once again, he wins, and like I said, he's probably going to continue winning for at least the next 3 races for sure. So I'm going to put that one in the predictions there. He's just going to go ahead and win the next 3, and we'll figure out the rest later on. So yeah, I mean, at least here it's a little bit different because he hasn't won at China because they haven't raced there since pre-COVID days. So at least it's slightly different. So he wins in front of the Chinese audience for the first time. But that's probably the last of all the tracks that are currently on the F1 schedule that he needs to conquer, I guess.
Yeah, and even if he hasn't conquered it, he will eventually, as long as he keeps on driving these cheated up cars. So as this year, the rest of this year, and next year. I got ahead of myself saying Imola was next. It's actually the race after Miami, and they'll lead into a doubleheader with Imola and Monaco. The looking for the Miami, Emilia Romagna. Oh, there you go. The drivers' standings after Chinese Grand Prix. Max Verstappen has a 25-point lead. So I think that's 4 or 5 races they've run so far this year. And that was a 6th race of the season. Or no, 5th race. Yeah, there you go. 5th race of the season. He's won 4 out of the 5. Every race that he's finished, he's won. So, I mean, that's basically all you need to know about that. Leads by 15 over, or 25 over Perez. 34 over Leclerc. And, 41 over Carlos Sainz. And Lando Norris rounding out the top 5. Piastri, Russell, Alonso, Hamilton, and Stroll rounding out the top 10. Heading into Miami in a couple weeks' time. So we'll see how those guys do in a car park. I mentioned like with Norris, he's like, oh, well, finishing second isn't bad and all this and that and the other. And it's like, why? Because you're going against your butt buddy Verstappen, or is there something else? And you couldn't really go and give a true answer to that. Lewis, I mentioned with Lewis and Zhou Guan Yu in his home Grand Prix, experiencing the fans and the delight that they had for having Formula One back. It's something that India definitely lacked when they had Formula One, that didn't have the level of enthusiasm or connection, and that's part of the reason why they dropped the track off of the calendar. So we'll see what happens as they move on to the race in Miami. All right, so let's get moving into the roundup here. IMSA, you had the what do you call GTP cars, and then the GT Daytona cars. So that was a classes there. I'm trying to find the results. The Grand Prix of Long Beach, the qualifying, they're not showing the winner of the race there, but looks like, right here, Sebastian Bourdais, that was the fastest lap. There you go. Let's bring that up. You had Sebastian Bourdais beating Pippo Durrani and Felipe Nasr. So 2 Cadillacs, and then the Porsche, Matthew Jaminet and the other Porsche, Jimmy Bruni driving one of the privately owned cars there, and Jesse Krohn rounding out the top 6. You got Jordan Taylor there and Louis Delatraz in 6th after recovery. Louis Delatraz hitting the fence. Or no, that was qualifying. Sorry. It's not showing. It's not showing the full results. I have to go and see if trying to go through here. IMSA. Bourdais, no tire strategy, only way to win. Scores 1-2. And I'm trying to go and bring up the results itself, but in GTD, Parker Thompson and Ben Barnicoat get the victory in the number 89 for Sealmaster and Vassar Sullivan Racing. It looked good for early on for the Lexus duo, but then the 12 got multiple penalties, and that knocked them back. They had to serve a drive-through and then fell back to the end of the field there. The BMW, the Turner Motorsport BMW with Robbie Foley behind the wheel, and then Spencer Pumpelly in the Harder Racing Aston rounded out the podium there. Let's move to the WEC at Imola. The results saw the number 7 Toyota, Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Nick DeVries win by 7, just over 7 seconds on the Porsche Penske Motorsports number 6 of Kevin Estre, Andre Lauderer, and Lawrence Vantor. The second Porsche Penske of Campbell, Christensen, Makowicki finished 25.6 seconds behind. And third, the two are Ferrari number 50, Fuco, Molina, Nielsen. Fourth, the other Toyota finished fifth. And BMW, Vanderlinde, Freins, Rast. The second Ferrari, Perguidi, Colato, Giovinazzi, the winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And then they have, of course, privateer car with Kubica, Schwartzman, and Yaffe or Yaffe, whichever way you want to do it. The Peugeot number 93, and then this Cadillac for Ganassi, rounding out the top 10, the point scorers there. In GT3, the team WRT number 31 gets the victory. Leon, Galil, and Farfus over their teammates Al Harthy, Rossi, and Maxime Martin. The Manti Purex Racing 92 ended up putting on the whip there to end the race and get themselves on the podium. Supercars at New Zealand. The Repco Supercars Championship. Andre Heimgardner held off the charge Andre Heimgardner did of race. What is it? Race 8. That's you got Supercars. Yeah, so then the top was a Repco Supercars race 7. It was in the rain. Mentioned Andre Heimgardner held off Will Davison for the victory. The Shell V-Power duo finished second and third. Ryan Wood for Walkinshaw Andretti United finished fourth. 4 Fords in the top 6, 5 in the top 8. Cam Waters, who's going to be coming back to drive another truck race, finished 8th. Will Brown was only 9th. And so that's where the that's where the race was there for the first race. And then in race 2, the top 10 shootout. The race itself, Will Brown battled his teammate Brock Feeney for the win there. Anton De Pasquale beats Matt Payne. Got Golding, Heimgardner, Mostert, LeBrock, and Waters, and Ryan Wood rounding out the top 10. The current point standings: Will Brown, Brock Feeney, Chaz Mostert, Richie Stanaway, Matt Payne. So the 2 Penrite teammates there: Nick Percat, Jack LeBrock, Andre Heimgardner, Will Davison, and James Golding, rounding out the top 10. World Superbikes, WSBK, World, SBK, the, 950, Cam Mispuna, Lozano, Remy Gardner, top back guys. The results, for the Dutch round of the World Superbike Championship. In race 1, Spinelli over Rascagliocu and Bautista. Race 2, Rascagliocu, Bautista, Remy Gardner. And Super pole race, Bautista over Balega and Alex Lowe's. Bautista holds the points lead by 6 over Rascat Lioku and 14 over Balega, and 30 over Alex Lowe's. And that's basically it. Garrett Gerloff is 12th in points. So we'll see how he progresses as the season goes on. WRC Rally. WRC. Yeah. Trying to go and bring them up. Results and standings. Thierry Neuville gets the victory in Croatia over Alfred Evans, Sebastian Ogier, Tanek, and Adrian Formeau rounding out the top 5 there after that huge wreck. The wrecks that they had going on there. Then you have 4 wide at Charlotte, NHRA. You have that, so NHRA got trying to see what you have the data from Las Vegas relative to what they're going to be seeing this weekend at Charlotte. All 4 pro categories will be back together this weekend. Pro stock motorcycle. You got, I'm not going to count these, but Matt Smith meaning business. You got Hector Rana Jr. with some unfinished business, and Gage Herrera, the defending series champion, there. In pro stock, they have a lot more cars. Dave Connolly going to attempt to make a race here. Larry Morgan back out of retirement, along with Jed Coughlin. Camry Caruso trying to manage her injury or recovery to get back in the car. And that's basically that. Then in funny car, heel honey car. Trev. Bob Tasca and Don Torture turn. Austin Prock. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of help there, but we'll see. Usual guys. I mean, you gotta look out for Hagen in a pseudo home game. You have to look out for Proc because Proc Rocket's always fast. JR Todd, John Force, who has a win. Tasca Caps, etc., etc. Then in Top Fuel, you got Anthony Wayne Stewart trying to get his first career Top Fuel victory. And then you got some of these other drivers trying to look all that stuff up prior to this race, and so we'll see how the 4 wide goes in Charlotte for these drivers, and we'll talk about it, or riders, and we'll talk about it again next week on the GSP. GP. Yeah, next one is Jerez in Spain. The standings heading into the Spanish Grand Prix, or at least one of. You got 21-point lead Martin over Jorge Martin over Enea Bastianini. And then you had Maverick Vinales, who won the last race, is within 24. Acosta's the rookie sensation's 26, and Pecco Bagnaia was 30 points back. Mark Marquez crashed while leading, so something to see how he'll recover this coming weekend. Going into where are they? Moto 2. Yeah, that's what I was trying to look for there. So then in MotoGP, Texas Treble, LCR. Oh wow. So that's cool. And then trying to do Moto 2. Latest news Moto 2 grab. So the last race was the U.S. Grand Prix. Sergio Garcia, not to be mixed up with the golfer, and Liv won his first race at Circuit of the Americas and held off Joe Roberts there for said victory. So this championship heading into this weekend in Moto 2, Sergio Garcia by 2 points over Roberts. And then there's a bigger drop, Alonso Lopez, Aaron Canet, and Iagura. Okay, Formula E, Monaco E-Prix. We'll go to Formula E. Release in season 9. Yeah, so right now there's a tie for the championship lead between Pascal Wehrlein, the winner last time out in Misano, and then Jake Dennis, the defending world champion, who's had two he's had 2 consecutive second places. Oliver Rowland for Nissan finished first in the first of 2 races at Misano, put up a fastest lap, and then promptly DNF'd the next day, which means there'll be a little bit of a tighter fight there. Nick Cassidy is 4th. Max Gunther 5th there for the crew there in Formula E. Heading to Monaco for one of the big ones. There always is a big one there. Massive event. Indy next. Kyle Kludnik's Brazilian star. Yeah, so the standings, they only ran at St. Pete, of course. So Nolan Siegel leads the points over Jacob Abel, Louis Foster, Michael D'Orlando, Reese Gold. Miles Rowe finished 8th. Yuven Sundaramurthy finished 12th. So that's where you got Taylor Hunt, you got Jamie Chadwick, Jack William Miller. So that'll take that'll be something, and the like. So that's that in regards to the roundup, which means we'll start talking about the races. So you have IndyCar you want to go and fantasy racing, but you want to see what you could do at Barber Motorsports Park. So, I'm just trying to go and find some data from recent years. Yeah, so that's for the last however many years. You got a Penske. It's a lot of Penske's and a lot of Chevys. Castro Neves, Will Power, Ryan Hunter Ray, Newgarden, Pagano, Newgarden again twice, Sato, and Alex Palou, Patricia O'Ward, and Scott McLaughlin, rounding out the drivers there. In terms of best average finish for active drivers is Alex Palou with a 2.7. He won his first career race a couple of years ago there. Scott Dixon, 3.8. Will Power, 6.1. And, yeah, it's a bit much there. Award, Grosjean, McLaughlin, Pagano, VK, Newgarden. Which for Newgarden, he's won there 3 times. Let's see here. I want to see who started. Yeah, so Josh, you started first last week, so I'll start first. I'm gonna go with Scotty McLaughlin, former winner at Baba, and opportunity after a rough weekend at Long Beach to immediately get back on track. My wild card selection for this race will be yeah, I'm gonna probably go to yeah, so the wild card I'm gonna choose is Christian Lundgaard. He's had pace ever since getting in an IndyCar at Barber, and so I think he is gonna be a factor, or at least look at a top 10 finish on Sunday. So trying to remember, yeah, so I picked Scott McLaughlin to win, and then in terms of, yeah, Lundgaard, wild card. What say you, Josh, in regards to your picks?
I will also go with the Penske car, but I'm going to go with Will Power here, winning at Barber. Winless last year for Will Power, so which is surprising. But this is a track where circuit where he's performed quite well over the years. Like you said earlier, 6.1 average finish. So I think Will Power can certainly get it done here at Baba, as Will or Lee Diffie likes to say. Yep. And for Indy or my wild card here, I'm gonna go with. See, this is an interesting one. Does Romain Grosjean count as a wild card now that he's in a Junko's car? Does that count?
I mean, in theory, I guess, because it's early enough in the season, but he ran well.
That is true.
So, I mean, it doesn't really matter one way or the other. It's just picks. So, I mean, I guess for now, we'll see how he does this weekend. And based on that, I think we'll start narrowing down what can be considered a wild card or not after we have 3 races into the season. So that's something I'll allow it. So yeah, so your willpower to win and Grosjean wild card. All right, so then the next will be the Xfinity Series. From yeah, so then the Xfinity Series will be the Bet Rivers 200. I 39 for 38, so one car will miss the show. Carson Quapple in the 88. You have some other, like the 66. Yeah, you got Daniel Dye there. You got the Ryan Truex who won this race last year. Trying to see there. So, Josh, you got first dibs, and I just need to go, and I need a minute. So, Josh, I'm gonna let you go and run it for Xfinity, and at least temporarily, and let us know who your picks will be.
Xfinity, I mean, obviously we have the Bet Rivers 200 going on this weekend. Looking at the entry list here on Jayski. Go there really quick. And looking at the entry list here on Jayski's site, 39 cars we've got here. Carson Quapple, of course, making another start here in the Junior Motorsports 88 car. That's the first car I see here that is of note here on this entry list. Daniel Dye also in the number 10 this week for colleague Taylor Gray in the 19. I think he's a regular. Yeah, he's a regular already. Ryan Truex once again in the number 20. Corey Heim also in the 26th this week, which that could be of notice because of potentially Eric Jones possibly missing the Cup race, so it could be a double duty event for him this weekend. So that's something to keep an eye on. Caden Honeycutt in the 92 this week for DGM Racing. So a lot of new guys either getting experience or making starts here in the Xfinity Series. The old tagline, names are made here. Certainly very true for the Xfinity Series. So there's a lot of things to look at. We don't really feel like Dover is a track that we overlook these days, of course, especially with the times that we race at Dover, which I'm pretty sure is none after this week we won't race at Dover for quite a while until next year. So this track, of course, used to be raced at twice. Now we only go to it once. So lots changed here in the last couple of years. But of course, weather. I mean, Phil mentioned it earlier on the show, being cold possibly in Delaware, still late April, which down here in Florida, very warm already, but Dover weather this weekend, very chilly, 40 in the low 60s, low 50s. That's the high and low this weekend. So possibly going to be a lot of high grip racing on a concrete track, but at least in the Xfinity Series, we can see some passing, unlike what we'll see probably up in the Cup Series cars. So, of course, last year in this race at Dover, going back to that, at Dover last year, who won in Xfinity? Ryan Truex won last year in an appearance in Xfinity, first career win for him here, of course, in this race once again. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can defend his title in a Joe Gibbs car, but got a feeling that probably one of the regulars will more than likely win this weekend. So I'm going to go with It's hard, but uh, so many names made here in the Xfinity Series for sure. Who's a good guy to go with based on the standings here in Xfinity standings? Who's in the lead right now? Chandler Smith. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Chandler Smith winning the Xfinity race this weekend. Wild card. Give me Carson Kvapil in the 88 car making his second career start here in the Xfinity Series. Dale Jr. giving him more opportunities here with him, especially how he's been doing here in late models, kicking butt in the car store. So Jr. giving his boy a opportunity once again here to shine in the Xfinity Series.
Both very solid picks, safe picks, especially on the Chandler Smith, basically going chalk there. Taking the Joe Gibbs deal since Ryan Truex had won last year, so we'll go and see how that is there. I think, who do I go with here? I picked Cole Custer a couple weeks ago, and it seems like the kind of track he'd be able to do pretty well at, but I'm gonna go Justin Allgaier. It's a track he's won at before, of course. He's been close at times this year. Should have won Phoenix and ended up on a rollback because of a left rear tire failure. In terms of a wild card now, one thing that we have to keep in mind is we have the Dash for Cash, and Jesse Love will be one of those drivers, of course, after his victory last week. But then you also have other regulars, which is Riley Herbst, Anthony Alfredo, and Leland Honeyman. I'm based on that, and actually, it's so I said that there, and then trying to see who in the drivers' points wise you have. So got 24, 25. Yeah, you have 25 drivers that have driven every race. So, yeah, there goes that one. I was hoping to be able to get Anthony Alfredo, but that's out. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Just go with Leland Honeyman. Why not? I was kind of thinking that's where I was going to go, so I mean, can pull out if he could get a top 20 finish, that'll be a win. It won't be enough for 100K, I don't believe, but at least, a top 20 finish for Young's Motorsports at Dover, having everything together, not having the car on a rollback, will be a victory. So that'll be a wild card choice. Last but not least, we'll have the NASCAR Cup Series at Dover. Gonna bring up the entry list. Just give me a moment here. The entry list for the Worth 400 at Dover Motor Speedway. 37 for 40. You have Jimmy Johnson running one of his limited races at arguably his best racetrack. AJ Allmendinger running in the 16 this coming weekend. And I think those are the only driver changes. But is it 15? Yeah, Kaz Gralla will actually be back in the 15 car instead of Cody Ware. So the sponsors, Chastain will have the Moose fraternity on his one car. Menards and Quaker State for Gumby. Bradstreet for Bald Spot. Overstock.com for Josh Berry. Build Submarines for Brad K. Gainbridge again for LaJoy. FICO for Kyle Busch. Napa, of course, for Clyde. Miller Tech for Gagson. Mavis Tire for Hamlin. Worth for Ryan Blaney. That was a sponsor for Brad Keselowski for many years when he was at Penske. Mahindra Tractors for Chase Briscoe, and 29 Capital Partners for Kaz Gralla. Action Industries, AJ Allmendinger. Fastenal for Christopher Buescher. Bass Pro for Martin Truex, and Yahoo for Christopher Bell. Harrison Burton with Dex Imaging. Joey Logano. Michelle Pennzoil. Bubba Wallace, Xfinity, and the U.S. Air Force. Byron Liberty University. Hemrick Poppy Bank. Michael McDowell, the Pete Store. Todd Gilliland, A&W All-American Food. Morton Buildings for Ryan Preece. John Hunter Nemechek with Acme on his Legacy Motor Club Toyota. Dollar Tree Petty 75th for Eric Jones if he makes it. Otherwise, it'll be Corey Heim. McDonald's on the 45 for Tyler Reddick. Hungry Jack for Richard. Walmart Health and Wellness for Haley. Monster for Keebler Gibbs. Focused Health for Zane Smith. Premier Security for Carson Hocevar. Dollar Tree and Family Dollar for Jimmy Johnson. And then Jockey for Nacho Libre. I get to pick first. In terms of my pick, in the one pool, I picked Martin. I saved Martin Truex Jr. A lot of people picked him at Richmond. I saved him for this express purpose to use him at Dover. It is his home track. It's the closest track to his home, essentially, in a sense. I mean, I think he has 12 home tracks. So, but this is the place where he won his first career race, and plenty of history there for him and his family. So, I'm going to pick Martin Truex Jr. As my winner. So, MTJ to win. And then the wild card, I mean, there's 36 cars that have run every single week, or 35. You go all the way down to 33rd. There, everyone's run every race. And then you have Kaz Gralla's missed a race, and he has more points than Zane Smith. Yeah, so that's 35, counting Kaz Gralla. So, anyone above 17th and up are out. So that takes out a lot of good names. After taking, what he took was Martin Truex Jr. Who do I think is going to have a good run? I'm going to go wild card wise. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go and say, I'm gonna go with Ryan Preece. So I'm going all Northeast here. It's a track that suits him. He's done well on the high banked, more on the high bank tracks. He has plenty of experience on that. So Preece as the wild card. Josh, you get last dibs here, and then you get to lead into your sim segment. So let us know who you're looking at for this weekend at Dover.
So there, go with stage winner MTJ. That was a good pick there to go with for him. This is hard. I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson. I'm just gonna go very chalk here, very chalk heavy on my picks today. Chandler and Xfinity. I'm gonna just go Kyle Larson. I feel like this is gonna be another track position race, and I feel like that they will benefit. A Hendrick car will benefit greatly from track position. Kyle has also been very fast as of late when it comes to qualifying, and having won the last 3 poles besides Talladega. So, and this can be a track position race. So, I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson here, winning the race, and everything. And for wild card, you know what? This might be a first, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to go pick with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as a wild card.
Wow.
Pancake
That
factor.
That is the pancake factor. Is that going to be are we going to make that as a new secondary measurement?
I don't know. I was like, is this valid? And he qualified 9th last year and finished 15th. Granted, he was running better last year, and this year he's mired in 25th. So that's part of it, but I don't know.
I mean, why not?
Why not?
When you're getting into the depths of despair, which is anybody behind Kyle Busch, which ironically includes Daniel Suarez, who has won a race. And you don't know what Eric Jones is, if he's going to be there or not. That's where I was like really struggling thinking of who I was going to pick, and come to that conclusion. I ended up picking Preece. So the fact you're going with Richard, not too shocking really in that sense. And I mean, Richard as a wild card, I mean, he has had success in the past in an Xfinity car at Dover, so you never know what may happen over there. And then think about the last time they were on concrete, they were just basically melting tires down there, so who knows, maybe a similar type of tire there this weekend. All right, Josh, let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and gaming here on the Sim Segment.
For me, ran iRacing, of course, ran a lot of Talladega Cup. I think I did stream once late Sunday night just to get one on there. But a lot of, what we saw on Sunday at Talladega, I definitely kind of saw here on the sim for sure. With the way things went down on the sim, or were very similar. I mean, you see with racing against other people, you're kind of stuck in a line, and it's very hard to make progress on the pack. You're kind of stuck in line, and a lot of times I would just try to go to the outside, because the outside doesn't tend to, at least whenever I do it, it tends to not get as traffic jammed as the bottom. And I feel like a lot of that is because the going into the turns, coming out of the turns, you get a little light on the bottom, especially in the tri-oval, and you lose momentum there. So stay on the top. You don't lose as much momentum there, and you kind of shuffle up towards the front. But of course, it does rely on the guys up front being able to, whoever's at the front, because I didn't really qualify, being able to push pretty aggressively and stay up there, of course. So that was, kind of the strat there. Just hang out on the outside and kind of, maintain your line and go up there. But, sometimes that didn't work. And so it was hard to really go anywhere with that if you didn't have a good push in whatever lane that you were in. So, it was a very similar experience to what we saw in Cup. You could try to make a third lane and go for it, but that also required a lot of help. But it was just if you got stuck up there by yourself or with only one other car, it was very hard to make progress. And anytime I saw a car drop to the outside without help, was hopefully trying to get up there and close the gap and just let him go. And it almost worked for a bunch of it, but there was one time where in the closing stages I kind of did that. I was not gonna let him back in, and then he kind of slowed me down, and then somebody else ran to the back of me and kind of got me there. So yeah, that was definitely part of it. Got caught up in a couple of big ones, I guess, but it's whatever. It's Talladega. We expect it. You just hope to make it through. I didn't really, I didn't really run up front a whole lot as much as I wanted to, but definitely, you find yourself up there eventually even if you're in the back. So yeah, Talladega at iRacing, yeah, very similar to how it is in real life with how you get stuck if you're not up front. One thing that I didn't like that I saw is like, if I ever like kind of shifted, I guess if I ever like very briefly drifted to the outside and left even the smallest of gaps, it felt like whoever was behind me would just fill in that gap very quickly. So that was kind of annoying, but I guess I was kind of doing that too. You have that. And then of course the other thing it is kind of annoying is if you're on the outside and you take the lead, everybody seems to be a tendency on iRacing, because they did this at the Daytona 500, but jump immediately to the bottom to take the lead and cover there instead of kind of staying with the middle, staying on the middle lane and keeping the momentum up there. I've done it before in Xfinity where you stay in the middle, maintain the lead no matter what, and maybe it's different in the Cup Series, but especially with the momentum and everything, so maybe that's part of it. But that's one thing that I saw, and it's like, especially like if you're getting the lead from somebody else, you have somebody pushing you. I have seen where the leader, when on the outside lane, will ditch the guy and jump to the bottom before the guy pushing him was clear of the leader in the bottom lane. So that's something that I have seen before, and that is kind of annoying to see that happen. So that happened to me, I think, at the Daytona 500 once, but I don't know if it happened to me here at Talladega, but you definitely see it when you're up front close enough to lead where you can see that lead change taking place. So that's basically what I did oval wise on iRacing. I think other results that I had, I did do a couple of MX5 Cup races, but really didn't do all that well. Kind of a little bit of a letdown on that effort, but that's okay, I guess. So we'll continue on with that. I think this week, NASCAR wise, at Dover, so they follow the schedule pretty closely. Obviously, oval wise, at Dover. Let's see what else. The Gen 4 cars at Rockingham, so a little bit of a different strategy there in terms of tire, where the fixed oval only series Indy cars at Homestead, so that might be interesting there. The IndyCar fixed series the regular IndyCar fixed series over at Barber, 13 laps race there, so that might be interesting. Might be willing to try that out. The Legends cars at Pocono, so the 87 cars at Pocono, another fun track for those cars to run at there. So that's basically the main oval series that definitely try out there on those tracks as mentioned. And then sports car racing this week. We've got Global MX5 Cup at VIR, Virginia International Raceway. Ferrari 296 GT3 cars at Laguna Seca. Let's see what else. Here we've got the IMSA iRacing series at Mugello this week. The Rainmaster series. So, I can actually do this one now. The Rainmaster series at Laguna Seca. So 100% chance of rain at Laguna Seca, which seems like a oddity to happen, especially in the desert of very tropical area of, well, not tropical because it does rain in tropics, but very dry area of California, we'll say that. I think that place is so very rare to see any rain happen in that area of California, I feel like, there. So that's definitely going to be one to try to hit up this week. And definitely got other tracks to look at here. Virginia International Raceway for MX5, as mentioned. We can see what there's any. The Toyota GR Cup at the Daytona Motorcycle Course, so not the traditional road course as run for the 24 hours of Daytona, but the motorcycle course that they run on there. So that goes the first, horseshoe, but then goes on to a different part and goes kind of on the other end to the west horseshoe, but then goes kind of through the infield towards Lake Lloyd and goes on to the backstretch and then back to the normal road course chicane as normal. So a little bit different, but the motorcycle circuit for Daytona, which I don't think that's the actual Daytona 200 circuit, but because I think they use both oval turns on that, if I'm not mistaken. But the other motorcycle course that has been used in the past here at Daytona
where the super bikes actually go and use that, but for the 200 they use the regular course minus the motorcycle hairpin. They do that one instead of the international horseshoe.
So I think this configuration they still use the horseshoe. Didn't look like the motorcycle hairpin, but definitely a different layout. So I might try that because that's actually a slightly different race of that I haven't experienced, I guess, with the Daytona, because I've definitely done a lot of road racing Daytona, but it's always been the regular 24-hour course or the NASCAR road course with the extra chicane there. So that might be one to hit up for sure. But definitely, at least road course wise, going to try the Rainmaster series here with the Ferrari 296 GT3 WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca layout there. So that's one to try out for sure. But that's it for me on iRacing. Of course, very, very interesting insight. I guess that's kind of why we play it. Maybe the physics aren't always the same, but certainly the racecraft and how you approach it, is very much similar. And, that's kind of where, you can actually maybe actually have a little bit of insight when it comes to watching these races play out on TV. And you think about, what would I do if I were in this situation on iRacing? And that's kind of where, you're able to kind of have that insight. So, of course, as always, when I do stream, Twitch TV, uSailor2, go on there and follow. Of course, Twitter page at JP Huffline. I'll probably be talking about the NFL draft coming up this week. Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock. We'll see where they go, wide receiver or defensive back or something else. So we'll see how that goes on Thursday. So definitely going to be exciting to see that play out. Also, the Simpsons, I guess, have predicted that the Jaguars will go to the Super Bowl. So Lord help me if they actually go. If this prediction happens, it'll be totally wild if that happens. But I guess I left the TV on after the race yesterday, and then I hear The Simpsons on, and I hear Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm like, what the heck? Rewind it, and it's the Jaguars in the Simpsons universe beating the Buffalo Bills in the second quarter. At the start of the second quarter, up 25-0. So I'm okay with that. And I guess after that, they went on to to go to the Super Bowl. Not win, but go to the Super Bowl. So we'll see if that prediction plays out. The Simpsons obviously known for their cultural predictions turning out to be true somehow. So we'll see if that happens. But I found that to be entertaining as well. So yeah, follow me on JP Huffine, of course. We'll have more draft takes probably, or at least sharing of draft takes later on this week. And of course, the YouTube page, of course, at Gripster Podcast. Go on there and like and subscribe to our page, and follow our videos, watch, listen, however you want to consume that content on there. So yeah, another week where we get to break down everything that happened this past Sunday, Saturday in racing. So of course, yeah, like I said, top of the show, glad to be able to do it.
Absolutely. And as always say, I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. I was definitely not feeling 100% today, but you were able to go and pick up the slack and give us great insight, as you always do, and pick up for me while I was basically zoning. So unfortunately, I apologize for that, but can't always be at 100% that way. But I guess I'm tired. But you can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. You can find me at PhilipGMatthew28 on Instagram. You can find the Gripster Podcast basically anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. We're on Podbean. Is our host site. You can go on philipgmatthew.com as well to get the audio, along with our YouTube page. My YouTube page has the audio as well. So plenty of places to go and find the show. And also, of course, the video feed, as Josh mentioned, that he handles. And yeah, so we'll be back next week. I should have, that's the time wise. If we had more, I would have probably talked about the draft as well. Niners do have a first round draft pick, assuming secondary or offensive line, which are the two probably biggest weaknesses on the Niners roster. So as long as they do something within one of those two areas, I'll be a happy fan. Otherwise, unless they're making some sort of weird trade or getting somebody that's a win now kind of guy, yeah, then I really will be questioning that, especially with the recent track record or the general track record of Lynch and Shanny in the first round. So we'll see about that. We'll see what happens, and we'll talk about all that, plus the racing at Dover and at Baba preview, and all the racing that's coming up following week. We'll do all that here on the GSP. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to the Gripster Podcast, and we'll see you next time.